Hello and welcome to Different Perspectives. I'm Paul Ndiho in Washington, coming to you live. This morning, all eyes are on a U.S. military operation in Caracas, Venezuela, which ended with the capture of President Nicolás Maduro and his wife. Sources are confirming that a U.S. Major military operation inside Caracas just hours ago. President Donald Trump announced the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro and First Lady. Multiple reports indicate that the president issued these orders to capture President Nicolás Maduro alive. We saw a couple reports of at least 7 explosions across the capital overnight. Sources believe to have been carried out the operation under the cover of darkness. Maduro is reportedly now in U.S. custody, according to President Donald Trump. This is obviously a fascinating story. It's very fluid. A lot of things are happening at the same time. It couldn't be, we've been talking about this for a while now, but now it looks like the administration, Trump's administration, decided to put this into action, as the reports that are coming out of Caracas indicate that for sure Maduro is in U.S. custody. We don't know of any casualties on the ground or if there were any deaths on the ground, but at least what we can confirm here at Ndiho is that President Nicolás Maduro, his wife, and maybe some senior other officials are in U.S. custody as we speak. But like I said, this is a developing story. We don't have a lot of details. This has been happening. We are expecting the White House to give a press conference at 11 a.m. our time here for more details at that time. But for now, what we can do is maybe to break it down. From a regional point of view, the Colombian-Venezuela border is rapidly rising. Within the past few hours, Colombian authorities organized military units citing concerns over possible mass movement of refugees after the strikes. And this is very significant in a sense that when stuff like this happens, obviously you are going to get a lot of people running away for their lives, trying to find better places for their families. And this refugee crisis could escalate even beyond Colombia to other parts of the region. Previously, we've had a lot of refugees coming from Venezuela. I think that was one of President Trump's promise, that there were a lot of Venezuelans who crossed into the United States illegally. Now maybe we could see an escalation in this regard. More people from Venezuela coming into the United States, because war is war. Once war starts out, you never know what is going to happen. Residents in the region tell us that they had sounds like a distant explosions coming from the direction of Caracas overnight. The border remains open for now, but officials say this could change at any moment. I'm not a military analyst, but for what it's worth, I'm just going to maybe weigh in briefly on what I think could happen. For now, from a tactical standpoint, and again, I'm not a military expert, this appears to have been a decapitative strike. Airspace restrictions were reportedly issued hours before the first explosions. suggesting close collaborations between the U.S. Pentagon and the law enforcement agencies on the ground. By targeting the command and control locations in Caracas, the operation likely disrupted Venezuela's military's ability to respond to the most critical phase, which was the extraction of moving Maduro out of a heavily fortified urban area under 30 minutes. Now, for context, this is incredible. U.S. forces invading a sovereign country and taking their leader within 30 minutes. Maybe there was a little bit of fire here and there, but that shows you the capability of the United States at doing such acts. And also it shows you maybe the weakness of the Venezuelan army. How can another military whatever come to take on your leader? Maybe they were not prepared. Maybe they thought that they could figure out how to walk out of this thing. But unfortunately, the timing was not on their side. President Donald Trump has been talking about how President Nicolás Maduro needs to leave, but maybe he did not take that warning seriously. Now here we are. He's likely to appear in a U.S. court maybe by tomorrow or today. If maybe based on the time, it might be tomorrow, because if they have to fly him over here, it's quite a distance flying from Caracas to here. Chances are that we might not see that happen tonight, but we'll probably see that in the coming hours and days, maybe. And other sources say that President Maduro is going to be tried for narco terrorism. There was apparently an impending case of him being indicted in 2020 as a narco terrorist. That's how they classified him. But this could get out of hand very quickly. Of course, the fallout on the other side of Venezuela as well could mean that people take on to the streets, or they just go into a guerrilla kind of, situation where they start havoc over there. Of course, let's not forget about the geopolitical fallout that is already unfolding. For example, Russia has condemned the operation as an act of armed aggression. Cuba and other regional allies are calling for an emergency UN Security Council meeting. This marks a major shift in U.S. foreign policy, from sanctions and diplomatic pressure to direct action. Now, what are some of the key takeaways from where I stand here? Obviously, this is an unfolding story. We are waiting to see if there are any developments. But what I can report as of now, President Maduro and his wife are in U.S. custody. There were several explosions had overnight. The key question remains, will Latin America see this as a liberation or see it as a dangerous precedent for sovereignty? Obviously, there are leaders like the leader in Colombia. President Trump has warned the leader to stop talking about whatever is happening in Venezuela. Maybe he could be next. Obviously, and this is the beginning. This could have its own, it could develop its own legs and, turn to some regional war of sorts. And the global, Venezuela was a huge oil exporter, and of course, also have other critical minerals. The global markets are reacting. Oil prices jumped nearly 4% in the early trading hours as investors assessed the stability of Venezuela as vast oil or energy reserves. While production has been limited for years, the sudden removal of Nicolás Maduro's government creates uncertainty. across energy sector. Analysts are watching defense stocks and the dollar very, very closely. So expect a volatility until Washington maybe comes up with a transitional leader. But I have to caution everybody here involved that things like this don't just happen like that. You take a leader out like that, it's not going to end well, regardless of how you look at it. We've seen examples of that. We saw that what happened in Iraq, we saw what happened in Afghanistan, we saw what happened in Libya. We've seen what happened in Syria, right? Anytime you take out a leader, regardless of whether that leader was legitimate or illegitimate, the local people are going to react. And don't forget that politics is always local. No matter how the international world looks at Venezuela, Maduro is a Venezuelan. There are people who love him, millions and millions of people who love him. And equally, there are millions and millions of people who hate him. So Washington has to be very, very careful here how they handle this transition, because for sure it's not going to be a walk in the park. That one I can confidently say. From a legal point of view, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I've been following this story for a while. I've been listening to a lot of analysts who argue on both sides of the coin. The legal justification is already under scrutiny. We have to admit that. The administration points to a 2020 narco terrorism indictment. Critics, however, are asking whether military action without a declaration of war crosses constitutional boundaries. And these are Americans asking those questions. Obviously, there are those diehards who like, fire, and there are those who don't like it. But from where the administration stands, President Donald Trump has made it very clear Maduro needed to go, and this is his war, I guess. Now we can call it a war, an escalation of war, or because I can kid you not, Venezuelans are not going to sit back and wait for maybe for a new regime change or somebody to be installed. They're going to have to, at some point, do things on their own to restore peace and security, to restore order. All that is going remains to be seen how things are going to play out. Now, I was listening to some analysts earlier who said if this proceeds to trial, it could reshape how international law treaties arrested carried out by military force on a foreign soil are interpreted. And of course, there's also a human rights angle there. As the smoke clears, of course, in Caracas, attention is turning to civilians. Reports of power outage and explosions near the presidential areas are deeply concerning, while many Venezuelans have long called for political change. Large-scale military action carries real risks for innocent lives. People are going to die. Human rights groups are urging a restraint, warning against a broader conflict in the streets, which is likely to happen. Because it happened at night, I'm sure now people are waking up, acting to these latest developments, and anything could happen really going forward, looking at it from that perspective. Of course, and here I've been also watching a lot of analysts, especially on the conservative side, supporters of the administration said this is the moment that has been everybody has been waiting for. They support the president's move to go to war in Venezuela, the arrest of President Nicolás Maduro, or the capture of President Nicolás Maduro and his wife. And of course, they argue that sanction and diplomacy failed, that a decisive action was necessary to remove what they call a narco dictator. From For them, this is accountability and a turning point for Venezuela. However, on the other side, Venezuelan officials are calling the operation an illegal act of imperial aggression. The United States they accuse the United States of violating international law and kidnapping the sitting president. For a moment, let's put this in context. Supposing this was to happen in the Western world, would it be acceptable for anybody ready to come and kidnap a Western leader? I want to pause for a moment and maybe repeat that question. If this kind of act happened in any Western world, would it be acceptable for a sitting head of state, regardless of how that person came into power, to be literally captured by a foreign military and taken out of their country against their will? I'm not a judge, but I'm just looking at it from a journalistic point of view, and I want to hear your thoughts and comments on this, because for sure, it's going to have a long-term implications going forward. I don't think this is going to be as easy as a lot of people think. It has a lot of tangents. It could escalate into a full-blown war. It could become one of those things where even the oil that we are looking at becomes something that rallies people of Venezuela together. And I can see a possibility that's something that a lot of people are proud of, especially Venezuelan. Nationalizing those oil wells it came at a cost of their independence. So there is a lot of things that could happen going forward, but we hope that maybe it doesn't get to that point where people feel very, very strongly about that. The point I want to make is I've been also looking at Venezuelan news, social media sites circulating, calling people to protest and resist the framing of the operation as a battle of sovereignty and oil and national capital. Of course, again, this is a developing story. It has a lot of things happening. Anything is possible at this moment. We don't have much detail. As the story progresses, will keep you updated with the latest. And don't forget, this is a special report. I just woke up, I read the news, I was like, okay, let me go and do a live segment on this. I'm yet to talk to any analysts in the region who can give me on the ground first-hand account of what happened. But as far as we are concerned, a U.S. military operation in Caracas ended with the capture of Nicolás Maduro and his wife. Sources are confirming a major U.S. military operation inside the country. Just hours ago, President Donald Trump announced on his Truth Social the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro and his wife, the First Lady. More reports indicate that at least 7 explosions were heard across the capital overnight. U.S. Special Forces are believed to have carried out the operation under the cover of darkness. Maduro is now reportedly in U.S. custody, facing long-standing narco-terrorism charges. The White House has scheduled an 11 a.m. news press conference or presser, where more details are expected. Let's walk you through what we know at this point, based on the reports, based on the news that is coming from Venezuela, and from also other sources that I've been able to get from people who are familiar with the situation. At the Colombian-Venezuelan border, tension is rising rapidly. Within the past hour or so, Colombian authorities have mobilized military units, citing concerns of a problem of mass movement of refugees following the strike. Residents in the region tell us that they heard what sounded like distant explosions are coming from all directions of Caracas overnight. The border now, at least for now, remains operational. It's open, but officials said that could change in a moment. The airspace restrictions are reportedly issued before the first explosions, suggesting a closer coordination between the Pentagon and the U.S. law enforcement agencies. By targeting the command and control locations in Caracas, the operation likely disrupted Venezuela's military's ability to respond promptly. The most critical phase was the extraction, moving President Maduro out of a heavily fortified urban area under 30 minutes. Again, to those who underestimate the might of U.S. military, this is a perfect example. They went in and they were able to capture Venezuela's president alive within less than 30 minutes. I can't even imagine of a scenario where that can happen in the Western world. So, to those who sometimes talk about U.S.'s military capability in a very funny way, maybe this should be an example. I remember this is not the first time that they are going after these high-profile leaders. Remember even how they captured Bin Laden in Pakistan, how this guy was literally, fished out. They were able to access his house, yet this was one of the most highly protected individuals. The same applies to Venezuelan president. But of course, as much as we might look at it and say it was an easy mission, there's probably casualties on the ground. People died. I'm sure that those people who are willing to fight until death. So it's more likely, as news starts coming out, it's more likely that we're going to learn of people who maybe died defending their president. We are live across all social media platforms, and today our topic is the U.S. military operation in Caracas, Venezuela, which ended with the capture of President Nicolás Maduro. Sources are confirming a major U.S. operation inside the country, and like I said earlier, President Donald Trump announced on his social media platform, Truth Social, that the Venezuelan leader and his wife are now in custody under the U.S. Military command. Let's maybe look at it from another angle. Let's look at it diplomatically. Let's take a diplomatic view. Again, than looking at other than studying the topic so well, I'm not a diplomatic expert, but I can tell you geopolitically the fallout is already unfolding. Russia has condemned the operation. And other countries are also weighing in. Colombia has weighed in as well. this could get ugly, and I can see other countries weighing in as well. Cuba and other regional allies are calling for an emergency at the UN Security Council. This marks a major shift for U.S. Foreign policy from sanctions and diplomatic pressure to direct military action. And also, people in that region are concerned about the influx of refugees. I kid you not, refugees are going to start fleeing, going to some of these places because they fear a war. Anybody who has been in a war region or anybody who has watched some of this stuff on television, it's not a pretty sign to be engaged in war. Now, this is what's happening as we speak. Will Latin America see this as a liberation or as a dangerous precedent over sovereignty? Of course, those questions remain to be seen. It's going to be a tough one, but what we can confirm as we speak to you right now is that Nicolás Maduro, the longtime leader of Venezuela, is no longer in charge. He has been captured alive, and his wife, and they are in U.S. custody. Again, just to reiterate what I just said, the long-time leader of Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro, and his wife, and probably some other high-level officials from Venezuela, have been captured and are in U.S. custody. This could be the beginning of a new phase or a new escalation of war. United States going directly into war with Venezuela. Before President Trump came, when he was campaigning, talked about how he was done with wars, foreign wars. But this could look like a major escalation. We could end up actually going into war with Venezuela. I see no way out at this point. I think all options are on the table. There easily could be with, especially with the troops amassment on the Western Southern Hemisphere. We've seen a lot of military assets deployed in that region. So there is a possibility that for sure President Donald Trump is likely to even launch a full-fledged war or ground war in Venezuela. Maybe now that they have taken out their main target, Nicolás Maduro, this could stop or this could end. But again, that remains to be seen. And of course, global markets are reacting to these latest developments. Oil prices jumped nearly 4% in early trading as investors assess the stability of Venezuela's vast energy reserves. While oil production has been limited for years, the sudden removal of Maduro's government creates uncertainty. Across the energy sector, analysts are watching very, very closely the stocks and the US dollar very, very closely. There is no question, expect some kind of volatility until Washington outlines a plan for political transition. From talking to lawyers, they say the justification is under scrutiny. The administration points to a 2020 narco-terrorism indictment. Critics, however, are asking whether military action without a declaration of war crosses our constitutional boundaries, and whether law enforcement arrests or is an act of war. If this goes to trial, it could reshape how international law treats arrests carried out by military force on foreign soil. Human rights view as the smoke clears in Caracas, the attention is turning to civilians. Uh, reports of power outage and explosions near the presidential areas are deeply concerning. Meanwhile, Venezuelans have long called for political change, large-scale military action, uh, and of course, other rights groups also are weighing in as we speak. They're saying that maybe this has gone too far. Supporters of the administration say this has been a long time coming. They tried everything diplomatically, but Maduro and his regime did not listen, did not want to change the attack. Now, it's too late. The United States is in it. They argue that the sanctions and diplomacy failed and that decisive action was necessary to remove what they call narco dictatorship. For them, this is accountability and a turning point for Venezuela. Now, on the other hand, obviously, for every story, there are going to be two sides of the story. Critics argue that the United States has escalated this. They look at this operation as an illegal act of imperial aggression. They accuse the United States of violating international law and kidnapping a sitting president. Calls are circulating for protests and resistance, framing the operation as a battle over sovereignty, oil, and national control. Then when you look on social media, this story is dominating the global conversation. More than 7 million posts just in a few hours. From Caracas to Washington, United Nations, one question is trending everywhere. What happens next? As we are waiting for the 11 a.m. White House press briefing, which could shape the next chapter of this story, we'll continue to track the latest developments, bringing you context, analysis, and voices from every side. To our viewers, don't forget to like, to follow, and subscribe to me, Paul Ndiho, on Substack, X, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Blue Sky, and other social media platforms. We'll see you on another edition of Different Perspectives. For now, I will take a break and I will come back a bit later with more details about this unfolding story. Take care.